Now, let's get to The Voice and the brilliant speech from Noel Pearson today. Now, Noel, more than any other person, has been the architect of The Voice. He's worked for decades with governments of all persuasions to deliver Indigenous recognition, and he came up with the constitutionally safe and practical idea of The Voice, embraced widely by Indigenous groups and politicians of all persuasions as preferable to mere symbolism.
On October the 14th, we, the Australian people, face a choice between crossing the bridge to our future or floundering in the past. A choice between listening to each other, respecting each other, or closing our hearts and minds to the simple truth that when we listen, we do better.
Pearson spoke of continued hope for a yes victory, and he focused on our shared love of country as the crucial common ground. But the divisiveness of the debate and the apparent rejection from voters in the polls seem to be taking its toll.
My people are a good people. They've done nothing to deserve contempt and disdain. They should not be feared or despised. They have suffered much. Let's not prolong the alienation. They have much to contribute to their country, if only they be given the chance to.
The Cape York leader also focused on the responsibility side of the equation, the crucial point that with a voice, with a say, comes increased accountability.
We can close the gap when we are empowered to take responsibility for our destiny. Blame us when you give us a voice. Hold us accountable too when we do this. We want our right to take responsibility.
But so far that right looks too hard to win, with all the polls running against the Voice proposal. The No camp is callously framing the Voice as a race-based division when it's actually not about race or racial characteristics at all. It's about including Indigenous people, the first people, and listening to them.
Why would we, the Australian people, bequeath to our great children the irresponsible rhetoric of war and disunity when we could give them reconciliation and justice instead?
Why indeed. This is a speech that every Australian should see in full. No matter how sceptical you are about the Voice, do yourself a favour, as they say. It'll be run again tomorrow on our Sky News Voice channel at 4:30 Eastern Time. You can also see it via our website at skynews.com.au. And no doubt the ABC will pay for it, of course. They'll have it on iView, I would imagine. If you have the power of a vote, do yourself the justice of watching Pearson's speech. And just on this, there is really so much confected division in this debate, it really troubles me. So many misleading claims and statements. Have a look at this commentary about Noel Pearson's speech from Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price earlier with Caleb on Shari.
It is the division that he is proposing, that this yes proposition is going to bring to this country, dividing us along the lines of race. I think he made some pretty derogatory comments around migrants that support the no case, which is really wrong of him, because the idea is that the migrants I've been speaking to feel left out of the equation a lot, and they are just as important to this country as anybody else, as those of us who belong to the First Peoples, those of us who also have convict ancestry. The migrants make up the community, and it doesn't matter if you've been in Australia for 60,000 years or 6 months. You're still Australian as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I want to give Jacinta the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she hadn't seen Noel Pearson's speech. Perhaps she'd only seen the tricky edited clip on social media that some people have been showing, because if you hadn't seen the speech, you might have swallowed that interpretation. But have a look at what Pearson actually went on to say about his pitch to migrants.
You come from all over the joint. You come from China. I say to them, where do you fit in Australia? Because we can move to an Australia where the Indigenous, the British descendants, and the multicultural mob become one. And we all know we're Australians. There's no priority among us. We're all equally Australians.
Yep, we are all Australians. It is unifying. It's Pearson who came up with the formulation a decade or so ago that so many others use now, that this country is built on three pillars of Indigenous heritage, of British settlers and institutions, and our immigration and multicultural bounty. Pearson argues that The Voice brings these three strands together. So you might disagree with that, but don't pretend he's being divisive. It really is divisive and dishonest politics to pretend he has the opposite intention to what is clearly enunciated. And you know, while I'm giving you the facts, let me give you the real facts also about the so-called $40 billion spent on Indigenous Australians, a figure used by Kamal and others. Is the use of this figure supposed to encourage resentment? I don't know, but here are the facts. The most recent Productivity Commission figures are more than 6 years old, and they provide a total of $33.4 billion spent on Indigenous Australians. So that's a lot of money, and maybe with inflation and the like, that does approach $40 billion now. So let's not quibble about the big figure. But the point is that this includes all spending, you know, on health, education, law and order, welfare, all the normal services that we all expect. Less than 20% of that money, according to that very same report, is for Indigenous specific programs. And why is the spending on Indigenous people per head about twice that spent on non-Indigenous Australians? Well, it's all there again in the same report, mainly because of the intensity of the services needed, the greater disadvantage and the younger population. And secondly, of course, because services are often delivered to remote communities where they cost a lot more. So there you go, that's the facts. There's no point being resentful about this. The real point is that we need to make sure this money delivers better results. And you know, call me crazy, but we just might get better results if we give Indigenous people a voice to share their ideas.